Kenobi is an amazing book that everybody should read, and if you don't even read it, you should listen to it on Audible. It's absolutely incredible. But hey, let's get into my review about Kenobi. So if you guys didn't know, when we hit 5,000 subscribers on this channel, we're doing another giveaway. And right here, I want to show you some really cool Star Wars pins from our friends at Sword and Whetstone. They have these really cool, creative, custom pins, and they were so gracious to donate 4 of these and a really cool sticker that we're going to be giving away. So, you know what, we're probably just going to give each one of these away individually, share the love. These are great pins, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can be in the loop for when we give these pins away. So for Kenobi, man, this book is so good. You know, it was written right at the end of the pre-Disney era. So, you know, it takes in almost everything in the EU about Kenobi, Tatooine, Anchorhead, all this, Jabba's palace. It ties in some really, really cool stuff. And I think this book, I think where it actually excels and shines is taking in a lot of references and lore from the EU, and instead of trying to change it and retcon it, at least from my knowledge and experience, they do a really good job of tying it all in. But then it also just shows the brutality of Tatooine. I mean, Tatooine is not a fun place to live, and I think this book is a refresher to show that. What's interesting for a book like Kenobi is not in it as much as you think he would be. Kenobi is very much structured like a Western. So if you're familiar with that genre, and if you've read a lot of Westerns or if you've watched a lot of Westerns, you'll feel very familiar with it. And essentially, Kenobi has this role where he comes in almost as like the Lone Ranger. Like he comes in really to kind of bring some order and some balance and to save the day. You know, it's very interesting because he lays down his identity as a Jedi Knight and he swears to protect Luke. And he really views Luke as the only hope for the galaxy in the book, which is very interesting. You know, there's he's alone in isolation. You see a lot of his regrets. The book has these awesome segments where he's meditating in the Force and calling out to Qui-Gon with no response. And those alone are worth the read. They really are. There's a lot about Tuskens. You get to see a lot about Tusken cultures. They're humanized a little bit. If you liked that in Book of Boba, or if you think it could have been done better, Kenobi does a great job at it. Seriously, great job. But I will say the book has a fairly slow beginning, and when Kenobi comes in, there's always this action surrounding him, and you know he uses the Force steadily, and there's just a lot of really cool, tasteful things that are done, and that I enjoyed. Although I will say the slow beginning, once you're past that, man, I just heard such great things about the book. I had to push past the slow beginning because it is different. It's a slower pace than you would expect for a Star Wars book, but I think it's written in such a way that it shows life on Tatooine, that it's not always flashy and crazy, that it was different for Kenobi. So I mean, if you're watching the prequels and then you read the book and go into the original trilogy, I think it's a great companion piece for sure. You see immense pain, no friendships, no family, nothing for Kenobi. He's completely stranded and alone. And you do learn a lot about the Tuskens. Like you find out that really the Tuskens and the Tatooine settlers, you know, they are at odds with one another, and there's glimpses and things that you can peer into to see why exactly they're at odds with one another. Some really cool insight that's in the book, you know, that I won't spoil. I'll try and keep it as spoiler free as possible so you can read it and enjoy it for yourself. But you really learn that the Tuskens are viewed as being enslaved to the land. There's this line in there that to be a Tusken was actually worse than death because they had to endure the wasteland. I was like, oh, wonderfully written. I enjoyed it seriously so much. But one thing that's actually cool as a side note about the Tuskens is you find out that from birth, they were wrapped in the cloth that we see, in live action. And there was constant pain and constant wounds. And if something like a pebble got in there during this wrapping procedure and ritual, it was kept. So there was constant boils and scarring and pain. And it kind of gives you an insight to why they were the way they were, rather. And they actually destroy the Vaporators because they see them as a defilement to the land. And then you can just see how very simply organizations and people groups can come in and they can manipulate that for their own benefit. And so there's some cool political stuff, and there's some cool like kind of national stuff or global stuff for Tatooine going on. That maybe it's just world building, it does a great job at it. But when it comes down to Kenobi, you're dealing with this whole community on the outskirts of Anchorhead called Oasis. And it took me a while to get invested into the characters, and there's some really big plot twists that honestly I didn't see coming and I thought were very tastefully done. But for me, Kenobi, I want to read a book about Kenobi, right? And so Kenobi's going to shine for me in particular. And seeing him live as a hermit and seeing him in pain, like post episode 3 pain, for me, that's what made the book, because it gave me an insight and a glimpse into his mindset. And I really thought it was wonderfully done. One thing that's cool is you have this encounter where Kenobi in his Force meditations is questioning the Force and questioning attachments. And really he's like, well, the Jedi were family, but now all of his family and friends are dead. And so he's really having this inner struggle, like, are attachments bad? Because I feel attached to them, but now they're all dead. And there's just great inner dialogue that he has. And he asks this question, like, what does it mean to be a Jedi alone? Like, to be the last Jedi, what does that mean? Not episode 8 Last Jedi, like, just what does it mean, to, like, be Kenobi? And really great contemplative questions. You're getting to peer into his mind, not only hearing his meditations, but then some of the characters kind of like spy on him, and you get to see some behind the scenes stuff there. And he talks about that he has trouble following the living Force. He's calling out to Qui-Gon, talking about this, and he needs to think about the bigger picture because he is so myopic. And you see that all the way. I mean, if you're just a movie-only person, you see that all the way from The Phantom Menace forward. Obi-Wan is very myopic, where somebody like Qui-Gon does look at the bigger picture. Some really cool stuff regarding Anakin in this book with Kenobi. He admits that he thinks it was impossible to save Anakin from the Emperor's influence. He's like, nah, there's no way that we could save Anakin. And Kenobi actually, spoiler alert, Kenobi actually finds out about Anakin killing the Tuskens from Attack of the Clones. And it's a heartbreaking moment when you hear about this one who came and slaughtered all the Tuskens, and Kenobi connects the dots and you realize, man, that was Anakin. It really is heartbreaking, when you read it. Like, these are fictional characters and they're moving my heart, man. One thing that's actually really cool in this book as well is Kenobi kills a crate dragon. Like, what? Like, it's such an incredible action-packed scene. I mean, it's so intense. And, that Kenobi can't die there, but like, they put so much tension in that portion of what you're reading. You think he's going to die, but it's really well done. Seriously. I think the two last things about this book I want to bring up before I give it my overall rating. One thing that's cool is there's a discussion about back to tanks and Tatooine, and talking about the aging of the two sons, and it's really cool just to see just how much thought they put into what is life like on Tatooine. And I think that John Jackson Miller did a fantastic job with that. I mean, kudos to him. He would never watch this video, but nonetheless, man, it's a fantastic read. And to be purely objective, I think the only thing I said I don't like so far is the slow beginning. There is kind of like a love interest at the very end with Obi-Wan and Annie. I just wasn't a fan of it, just me personally. It's kind of right near the tail end of the book. I was just like, ugh, okay, moving on for me. I just didn't like it. But with all of that said, I would easily give this a 4 out of 5 for my ranking. I think this was a fantastic read, and I have to admit, I listened to it on Audible and I loved it. I didn't buy a physical copy of it. I bought it on Audible and listened, and the sound design is wonderful, the narration, the characters, everything. It was a great listen. I read through my ears, so to speak. But if you're into audiobooks, check it out. If not, go on eBay or whatever your used bookstore is. Go to your local bookstore, pick up a copy of Kenobi. You won't be regretting it, especially with the series coming out. Hopefully it doesn't let us down, but nonetheless, you can read this in time before May, and you can get yourself amped up for it. But hey, with that, if you're not already, hop in the Discord. The link's in the description below. We have a giveaway coming up very, very soon, and so keep your eyes peeled for that stream. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm Mr. 2 Star Wars Nerds. This is my journey into the EU, and may the Force be with you always.